Imagine a man who has everything. Money, power, and the kind of arrogance that can only come from a life without struggle. Let's call him Harrison Sterling. He's sitting in a restaurant so fancy it feels like another world, surrounded by friends who laugh at all his jokes. He leans in, a smirk playing on his lips, and decides to have a little fun at someone else's expense. In Arabic, he says to his friends, Ya jama'e, unzuru ilayha. Al-Maskina. Look at her, everyone. The poor thing. His friends let out a quiet, cruel laugh. The camera would cut to the waitress, Amina. She's focused on pouring wine, but for a split second, her hand tightens on the bottle. The man, Harrison, believes his words are a secret code, a way to insult this humble waitress without anyone knowing. He thinks she's just a servant, a nobody in his world of power. But what she says next won't just break the silence. It will shatter his pride and leave every single person in that room completely stunned. Section 1, Two Colliding Worlds. To really feel the impact of that moment, you have to understand the two people at the center of it. First, there's Harrison Sterling. His world was built on inheritance and ruthless business deals. His days were a blur of 50th floor boardrooms, private jets, and dinners at exclusive restaurants like this one, where the air itself seemed to buzz with the sound of money. Sterling lived his life thinking everyone had a price, that respect was something you bought, not earned. He never made eye contact with the staff, seeing them as part of the furniture, functional, but totally beneath him. He wasn't just rich, he was arrogant, convinced his net worth was the only thing that made him a worthy human being. His friends were just like him, a bubble of entitlement floating through life, judging everyone by the label on their suit or the size of their bank account. To them, a waitress wasn't a person with a story, she was just a pair of hands. Then, there was Amina's world. Her world didn't have sweeping city views. It had a small window overlooking a noisy street. Her alarm went off before the sun came up. At 24, she had a quiet grace people often mistook for shyness. But underneath, she had a will of steel, forged by hardship and a mind that burned with a quiet fire. She wasn't a waitress by choice. Her dream was to be a translator, a bridge between cultures. She'd been a brilliant student, accepted into a top university for Middle Eastern studies. But when her mother, her only family, got seriously ill, the medical bills piled up. Amina made a tough choice. She put her dream on hold and took 2 jobs to stay afloat. One of them was here. Working in this restaurant was like stepping into another universe. She'd spend her days caring for her mom, then put on her uniform and enter a world where 1 bottle of wine cost more than her rent. But Amina never let it make her bitter. Instead, she watched. She learned. She studied people. And she studied language. Her father, a diplomat she'd lost as a child, had spoken 5 languages and left behind a library of books she treasured. Among them were volumes of Arabic poetry. To keep his memory alive, her mother had encouraged her to learn the language. What started as a tribute became her passion. Amina spent her free hours practicing calligraphy and talking with language partners online. To her, Arabic wasn't just a subject, it was music, history, and dignity. It was a secret garden she grew inside herself, a sanctuary no one knew existed. Her co-workers saw a reliable waitress. The wealthy patrons saw a servant. No one saw the scholar. On this night, Amina was exhausted. Her mom had a bad night, and she was running on fumes, covering a double shift. Tucked in her apron was a text from the insurance company, denying a new treatment for her mother. The weight of it all was crushing, but her face showed nothing. She moved with her usual calm and professionalism. Then, Harrison Sterling and his friends sat in her section. She'd seen his type before, men who looked right through her. She took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and walked to the table. Section 2, The Unraveling. The attack didn't start with a shout, but with a dozen little cuts. Sterling didn't even look at her as he ordered, just waved a hand dismissively. Water. Still. Italian, not French. And open it at the table. Last time, some fool brought it already opened. Unacceptable. Amina just nodded. Of course, sir. His friend snickered. As she poured the water, Sterling spoke to his friends, but loud enough for everyone to hear. It's just astonishing what passes for service these days. No pride in the work. Amina kept pouring, her hand steady as a rock. With every order, there was a new jab. A woman complained the light was making her diamonds look dull. A man quizzed her on the origin of the scallops, clearly trying to trip her up. She answered every question calmly and correctly, her professionalism a quiet shield against their condescension. But her composure just seemed to make Sterling angrier. He loved seeing people flustered by his power. Her dignity was a wall he couldn't break. So, he decided to pull out a weapon he was sure she couldn't defend against. He leaned back with a smug smile, switched to Arabic, and said the words that made his friends laugh. Ya jama'e, unzuru ilayha. Al-maskina. Look at her, everyone. The poor thing. Amina froze. The word maskina wasn't just poor thing. It meant wretched, miserable. It was meant to strip her of her humanity. She could feel the stares from other tables. Heat rose in her cheeks, a flush of shame and anger. A voice in her head screamed, just walk away. It's not worth it. But then she thought of the insurance denial. The exhaustion. The feeling of being completely invisible. Sterling, loving the silence, decided to twist the knife. He looked right at her worn-out shoes. In clear, scornful Arabic, he said, Akdamu la tarifu illa tarik al-kadama. Wa yadaiha, la alaha lam talmiz shayan damina fi hayatiha. Her feet only know the servant's path. And her hands, they have probably never touched anything of value in her life. That did it. This wasn't just rudeness. This was a vicious attack on her life, her worth, her very being. The laughter from his table was louder this time, grating and ugly. Other diners shifted uncomfortably. They were all witnesses, frozen in a moment of public humiliation. Every instinct told Amina to run, to hide. Tears pricked her eyes. But then she thought of her mother's strength. She thought of her father's love for language, and of the dignity they taught her was a birthright, something no amount of money could buy and no cruelty could take away. In that instant, a strange calm washed over her. The anger was still there, but it was no longer hot and messy. It was a cold, sharp point of resolve. The tired waitress receded. And Amina, the scholar, the woman of substance, stepped forward. She gently placed her tray on a stand. Her movements were no longer rushed, they were deliberate and full of poise. She turned to face Harrison Sterling, looked him directly in the eye, and prepared to speak. The silence in the restaurant was now absolute, thick with anticipation. Sterling's smirk started to fade. He was used to people cowering, not confronting him. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Amina did. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear as a bell. And it was in flawless, eloquent Arabic. Not the clumsy Arabic of a tourist, but the rich, poetic language of a scholar. She began with a classic proverb. Al-Hilm Sayyid al-Akhlaq, she said, her voice carrying across the stunned room. Forbearance is the master of all virtues. Sterling's jaw went slack. The color drained from his face. His friends froze, wine glasses halfway to their lips. At the nearby tables, people were staring, their mouths hanging open. But Amina wasn't done. Holding his gaze, she continued, her voice growing stronger. Tazunu an al-mal huwa tharwatuk al-hakisha. Do you believe money is your true wealth? She paused, letting the question hang in the air. La tharwat al-insan fi aklihai wa kulukihi. No. A person's wealth lies in their mind and their character. Then, she addressed his insult head-on, her voice sharp with righteous anger. Kulta ina yadaya lam talmis shayan Amina. You said my hands have never touched anything of value. She held up her right hand. These hands, sir, have held first edition books of poetry. They've turned pages of manuscripts that hold more history and wisdom than all the money in your bank. They care for my mother, which is a treasure you clearly can't comprehend. Her words hit him like stones. The humiliation in the room had done a complete 180. It was off her shoulders now and sitting squarely on Harrison Sterling. He looked like he'd been slapped. His friends were suddenly fascinated by their dinner plates, refusing to look at him. Amina took one step closer, her voice dropping to a powerful whisper. Wa kulta ina aktami la tarifu illa tarik al-kadama. And you said my feet only know the servant's path. She gave a small, cold smile. It's true, I walk this path to pay for my mother's medicine and to one day finish my degree. But you, sir, walk the path of arrogance. And that path leads only to an empty heart. Tajri al-riyahu baima latashtahi al-sufyunu. The winds blow counter to what the ships desire. You thought you were in control tonight, Mr. Sterling. You were wrong. With that, she gave a slight, formal nod, as if dismissing him. The spell was broken. From a nearby table, someone whispered, "Wow." Then, an elderly woman began to clap. Her husband joined in. Then another table. Within seconds, the entire restaurant erupted in applause. It wasn't polite clapping, it was a genuine, roaring ovation for Amina's courage and unassailable dignity. The manager, Mr. Du Bois, strode to Sterling's table, his face like stone. "Mr. Sterling," he said firmly. "I think you and your party are finished here. Please, leave. Now." For the first time in his life, Sterling was speechless. He looked around for an ally and found none. His friends were already scrambling to get away. As he and his crew were ushered out in disgrace, the applause for Amina grew even louder. Later, an older gentleman came over to her. "Young lady," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "that was the most remarkable thing I have ever witnessed." He pressed a business card into her hand. "My company is always looking for brilliant linguists with character. Call my office. We will offer you a position and cover your full tuition." Amina stood in the now quiet dining room, the weight of the world finally lifted from her shoulders. Mr. Du Bois approached her with a warm smile. "Amina," he said gently. "Go home. Be with your mother. Your job will be waiting, but I have a feeling you won't be needing it for long." Conclusion. That night, a billionaire tried to make a waitress feel small. He tried to define her by her apron and her tired shoes. But he failed, because he didn't really see her at all. He only saw a reflection of his own prejudice. This story isn't about revenge. It's about a truth we too often forget: true wealth isn't in our wallets, it's in our character. True power isn't the ability to put others down, but the strength to stand with dignity when tested. And respect isn't a privilege for the few, it's a right that belongs to everyone. Amina didn't need to shout to be heard. Her power was in her knowledge, her courage, and the quiet, unshakable dignity that no amount of arrogance could ever touch. Never underestimate the person standing in front of you. You never know what hidden strengths they possess, or what language of truth they're ready to speak.